knowing who he was when he was playing with the Celtics.
Right.
Then it was very well understood that this is a guy that had basically, the Bucks had tried to terminate his contract because of his alcohol issues, and he basically had invested. He had opened a restaurant, and it went belly under. He says that his accountant took some money from him, and so it's a story of what he calls redemption, in the sense that this isn't just some guy that used to play basketball that's now a barista at your local Starbucks. This is a guy who lost everything because of his dependency to a substance. And this is him trying to turn it around and provide for his family and give himself a future.
I think it's a great look because, it's not about, the 7 or 8 times that you get knocked down. It's about the 8th or 9th time that you stand up. And, these guys get out here making the money that they do as quickly as they make it. And, who knew that he was struggling all these years with alcohol? And even after the fact, the struggle, once you get into retirement, you're already no longer being somebody, based on the game that you play and people knowing you in that way. Now you're struggling with trying to reassimilate, with society. And, when he got out, all of the TV jobs weren't widely available. I don't know how great of a speaker he is, or not everybody is made for TV.
He is very well spoken.
He's actually preaching now under his father.
Right, his father has a ministry group somewhere in Connecticut, wherever he's from.
Right,
and he's trained as a minister, which he was doing beforehand. But he said he's only been sober for 4 years now. And that was one of the highlights, and I think something that he's going to try to do in the future. He was at NBA Summer League in Vegas. Jason Kidd invited him down to be some form of an assistant coach with the Bucks.
Okay.
And while he was there, that was one of his points of emphasis, was to talk to the guys, particularly these young ones, this new batch under this new collective bargaining agreement that's getting $80 million and aren't even all-stars. And just to tell them the pitfalls and the things that you should do and be aware of. And so he's trying to turn his story into something that will help, because and that's discussed in NFL and NBA.
Right. The Rookie Symposium.
Right. They're both trying to do more things to help guide these kids and not have them hit these same pitfalls.
Right. I feel like what a perfect person to kind of take on, to experience this downfall and then to get up again. In him, he seemed very, I wouldn't say nonchalant, but I mean, he
seems humbled.
Yeah, he brushed off the fact that, I lost $100 million.
Yeah.
But he seems like he's been able to regroup and get his thing going. And before we move on, it was interesting. Yesterday, as I was driving out to run some errands, Anthony Hamilton's, he has a song on his last album. I can't even think of the name of it now, but it was something about life. I think it was Life Has a Way. But it's a very bluesy kind of song, very minimalist beat. And I was getting ready to fast forward it because I wanted to hear something with a bit more energy in it, but I just let it ride. And that's kind of what the theme of the song was, that life has a way of humbling you down. And it kind of just spoke to Vin Baker's story. I'm glad he's putting it back together, and it just seems like, he'll be a guy that's able to bounce back from this, and hopefully he's able to connect with some young guys, a Boogie Cousins, whoever else is out there. I don't want to call. I don't know if Boogie gets in trouble off the court, but
But yeah, I mean, it's as he said, and I just I instantly, whenever somebody says somebody made $80 million and isn't an all-star or didn't deserve it, I instantly think about Reggie Jackson. I feel like he's the poster child for that whole thing.
Right.
But the Bucks have been paying some guys, so he's got a relationship with Jason Kidd, and so I'm sure that we'll see more of him.
Right. So getting past some current events, man. We're going to close this out. We got about 10 to 15 minutes left to run through. I asked G earlier to put together 3 storylines of what he's looking for going into next season. We pretty much we've got to put an eyeball on some of the exciting rookies that are coming in. We've got an idea of how some second year players, we've been able to see them in the summer leagues. About the only person that we still don't have anything on is probably Joel Embiid in Philadelphia. So that's what we're going to get into to close this one out. Top 3 storylines for next year. They don't necessarily have to be a 3, 2, 1. Just what's your number 3?
Well, a big thing for me, I am very interested in the Clippers this season. I think that, for the past couple years, they've been in the conversation. People have always looked at them as a possible contender, but I think they've always had depth issues.
Right.
And I think that the signings and the moves they've made this offseason solidify all those issues.
I didn't think you could really win with Matt Barnes as your 3. And not to really knock him, but I just think he's limited as a 3, 2, in my opinion.
I like Matt Barnes because I like guys that, get into you on the defensive end.
I get that.
He's not really getting you buckets, but he made himself, you can't leave him out there at the 3.
Right.
But yes, they move on from Matt Barnes. They end up sending him over to the Grizzlies. And now at that position, they've got slated Paul Pierce to start probably.
Okay.
Wesley Johnson coming off the bench. And then one of their draft picks, Brandon Dawson, who looked pretty decent.
Wesley Johnson from Syracuse?
Yeah, last with the LA Lakers.
He's with the Clippers now?
Yes, sir.
Damn. Okay.
So I think they've got depth at that position. Look, Paul Pierce has done a complete 180 in my book as far as people who I used to hate and now I can't stop paying attention to.
Right.
His last couple years with the Celtics and then that whole thing last year with the Wiz.
Right.
This is why they brought me here. I call game. All that stuff. That guy's good TV.
Right.
He's good TV.
Right.
But the only position I feel that they may be suspect at now is backup point guard, and I feel like they'll try to address it. I don't know if Austin Rivers gives you legit backup point guard duties for a whole season. I think he's good in spots. And look, sure, maybe him being under Chris Paul for however many months he was last year towards the end of the season helped him grow, but I don't think it was enough to be oh, this is my guy. So one of their first moves in the offseason was to sign Lance Stevenson, or actually trade for Lance Stevenson from the Hornets. And I expect, unless they shore up that position, I think Lance will have some on-ball duty, which he's fine with doing. He did that a lot for the Pacers because George Hill is more of a scoring guard, as we had discussed before. They've now got Josh Smith as a backup power forward, who I think will inevitably end up playing some center for them when they go small, when DeAndre is getting the hack or whatever you want to call it.
Right.
I think Josh Smith moves into that position. He can still defend most of those guys at the 4 and 5 position, gives them another playmaker. And I just think that's going to be a good team to look out for next year.
You put me, we just briefly discussed each other's top 3 items beforehand, and you really enlightened me to what to expect in the Clippers. All I'm going to say is 2 things. One thing, the focus now is going to be on what can Doc Rivers get out of Josh Smith that nobody else has been able to consistently get out of him. And then secondly, it really puts based on the lineup that you just told me, the depth, barring health, it really puts a lot of pressure on CP3 to finally get it really done, and not just once again be the bride at the altar. This team is pretty much loaded.
Yeah, they still got JJ Redick,
right, who's very consistent, and then we're going to see the further maturation of Griffin. So my number 3, it's kind of two. I won't break both of them down, but quickly I'll just say that the Lakers have tried to retool for one last hurrah with Kobe, which we would expect to be one last hurrah. You never know what the Black Mamba could do. But I would just say that's a hell of a effort to bring in Roy Hibbert. You know, we'll see Randall coming in for his first year being healthy. D'Angelo Clarkson is a guy that proved himself to be serviceable last year. We don't know who wins out as the number one, but then you have Kobe, and then I'm leaving out one. What other move they made?
D'Angelo, Roy.
I cannot think of that small forward. Anyway, that wasn't the one that I really wanted to build on. I'm just saying I'm interested to see how Kobe closes down, you know, a Hall of Fame career, first ballot Hall of Fame career. If you can find that for me, we can mention that. I'll move on to my number 3A is actually Jabari coming back to a Bucks team that was able to exceed expectations last year and move into that, you know, top 6, top 7 spots in the East. So we bring Jabari back to that. We have another year of J Kidd in his positionless basketball. This is a team based on Antetokounmpo's performance at this World game, this Africa game. This is a team in a very stingy performance versus Chicago in the second round of the playoffs. This is an interesting team to see what. I mean, and then with Greg Monroe, you know, a bitter subject for me and you moving over there, that's a pretty formidable team that could maybe replace a team such as like Atlanta Hawks. I don't know if they're number 2 or number 1 in there because Cleveland is obviously going to have what they have coming back to the table. But I'm interested to see what this group of guys can do.
Yeah, I think the Bucks are going to do. I mean, when Monroe's out there, it would be a little different, but still, they're gonna do a lot of pace. They're gonna try to get up and down. They're gonna try to spread you out.
Right.
And they were much improved on the defensive end last year, and I think you're just gonna see more of that. J Kidd he's a very defensive minded coach. He wants to stop guys. So yeah, I agree. I think that.
And what is Jabari? Is he a 12-point a night guy? Is he 18? Is he? You know, to have a top 6, top 7 team without him to bring him in, I mean, what's his boost? And like I said, and then you add one of the more efficient players in the lane. I think he was top 3 in terms of points in the paint in Greg Monroe. This team could really be, I mean, and obviously Cleveland without Love and Kyrie Irving just had some issues with positionless basketball out there against Golden State. So this team probably won't be ready next year to threaten or to pose a threat to Cleveland. But at least that region of that area of the country has a team that they can stay in it for the full 82 game schedule.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to this probable divisionless basketball that we're probably going to see this year. Adam.
Oh yeah. Good point.
Because if that wasn't the case, the Pistons would have no chance to get into the playoffs. That division is going to kick everybody's butt.
Right.
So yeah, I'm looking forward to that, and I agree. I think that the Bucks are a team on the rise.
All right. What's your number 2, man?
My number 2 was just more of a developing storyline, a thing that's quote unquote the trend right now. Female head coaches or female assistant coaches with the possibility to become head coaches. I think that's just a very interesting point to watch play out.
I think it's imminent.
Yeah, and I mean, look, I can admit that before Summer League really popped off and was really popular and on TV, there was a large drought in my NBA basketball life, so I may have occasionally watched some WNBA games.
I won't hold it against you.
You know,
I'm gonna tie that into my rebuttal to your point.
Yeah, and so I was familiar with Becky Hammon beforehand, and I think that she did a great job with the Summer League. I think that she got those guys to really buy in. Like, you could just watching the Spurs in that Vegas Summer League. those guys just seem to play harder.
Right.
Like they were playing for something, and inevitably they were playing for her. Like they wanted to get, I think they wanted to give her that recognition that organization wants to help put her up on a pedestal and help showcase her as somebody that deserves a shot. And we had talked about before, like, there's a real possibility that she could be a head coach soon.
I would say maybe